The wind howled across the Wyoming plains, carrying dust and rumor alike. Folks in the little town of Dawson Creek always found something to talk about, but this time the talk was sharper than the wind. Asterisk. Did you hear? That rancher from the North Ridge, Eli Turner, he's buying himself a bride? Asterisk, buying? Laughed another. Like a horse or a plow, I reckon. Asterisk, no one dared say it loud when Eli was near, though. He was the richest rancher in the territory, tough as a pine knot, sharp as a branding iron, and twice as stubborn. But ever since his fiancée had died 5 years ago, he'd turned colder than the mountains in winter. Asterisk, he didn't smile. Didn't laugh. Didn't dance. Asterisk just worked, built his ranch into an empire, and made sure no one got close enough to hurt him again. The bride auction, as people whispered, wasn't what it sounded like. The preacher called it a charitable arrangement. Women from the eastern city's orphans, widows the forgotten, had come west seeking husbands, protection, or simply a new life. Eli hadn't gone there looking for a wife, but something had changed that morning. Maybe it was the silence of his big, empty house. Maybe it was the way the sunrise hit the mountains, reminding him of all the lonely years ahead. Asterisk, whatever it was. Eli found himself standing among a crowd of men as the preacher introduced the women one by one. Asterisk, gentlemen, the preacher said, these are good women, each deserving of a second chance. Asterisk, the men muttered and appraised. Some laughed. Some whispered cruel things when a shy woman stepped forward with her hands clasped tight, and then she came out. The girl no one clapped for. Asterisk, she wore a plain gray dress, worn at the edges. Her veil was torn and her shoes were caked with dust. She held herself small, as if trying to vanish. Asterisk, this young lady is Miss Clara Hayes, the preacher said, his tone kind but strained. She's 22. She lost her family in the floods back east. She's hardworking, quiet, and has no dowry to offer. No one moved. Someone coughed. Another man laughed under his breath. Asterisk, guess nobody's that desperate. Someone muttered. Asterisk, Eli felt his jaw tighten. He didn't know why, but something in the girl's stillness angered him. The way she stood there while men judged her like livestock. Asterisk, before he could think better of it. He heard his own voice. Asterisk, I'll take her. The crowd went silent. Even the preacher blinked. Mr. Turner, you mean? Asterisk, Eli tossed a leather pouch onto the table. That's more than enough for her passage and whatever else she needs. Drop the papers. Asterisk, the girl didn't look up. She just nodded once, as if she had expected this to happen all along. The ride back to the Turner Ranch was silent. Asterisk, Eli drove the wagon himself, glancing occasionally at the woman beside him. Clara sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes hidden beneath her veil. Asterisk, you can speak, you know, he said finally. Asterisk, yes, sir. Her voice was soft, careful. Asterisk, he frowned. Don't call me sir. Asterisk, yes. Mr. Turner. Asterisk, that's worse. She didn't respond, and he didn't try again. When they reached the ranch, the sky had turned red with sunset. His ranch hands stopped what they were doing to stare. Asterisk, boss brought home a wife. One of them whispered. Asterisk, looks like it, another replied. Never thought I'd see the day. Asterisk, Eli ignored them. He helped Clara down, motioned toward the main house, and led her inside. Asterisk, this'll be your home now, he said. You'll have your own room. You're free to work if you want, but you don't have to. I don't expect anything except honesty. Asterisk, she stood in the doorway, clutching the handle of her small bag. You don't want anything else? Asterisk, Eli paused. No, I didn't buy you for that. Asterisk, for the first time, she looked at him, really looked. He caught a glimpse of her eyes through the thin veil. They were gray, clear, and unbearably sad. Something twisted inside his chest. "I'll have dinner sent up," he said roughly, and walked out before he could ask anything more. Days turned into weeks. Clara never complained. She mended clothes, fed the chickens, and sometimes read by the fire late at night. She spoke little, smiled even less. Eli tried to stay busy riding fences, overseeing cattle drives, but he found himself watching her more than he wanted to. She moved like someone used to being unseen, quiet as falling snow. But there was a gentleness about her that seeped into the house. The hands noticed too. Boss seemed softer these days. One joke. Must be that new Mrs. Turner. Eli brushed it off. But he couldn't deny it. The house didn't feel empty anymore. Still. Something about her didn't add up. Once. He came in early from the range and found her staring into the mirror, veil lifted. She froze when she saw him, jerking the fabric back down. "Why do you always wear that?" he asked quietly. Her hands trembled. "Because people look at me differently when I don't." Different how? She didn't answer. He wanted to reach for her, to lift the veil himself, but something in her eyes stopped him. It wasn't shame. It was fear. Winter came hard that year. Snow piled high against the fences. The cattle grew restless. One morning, Eli returned from checking the herds to find Clara in the yard, feeding the horses in the biting wind. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, taking the bucket from her. "They're hungry," she replied simply. "They get cold too." He shook his head. "You'll make yourself sick." When she turned to go, she stumbled. He caught her just before she fell, his arms strong around her shoulders. "Clara," he murmured. "Look at me." Slowly, she lifted her face. The wind caught her veil, pulling it aside. Eli froze. Half her face was scarred faint, healed, but unmistakable. The marks ran from her temple down to her cheek, as if fire or shrapnel had once kissed her skin. But her eyes, those gray eyes, were steady, unflinching. She waited for him to step back. He didn't. Instead. He raised a hand and brushed a loose strand of hair from her forehead. "Is that what you were hiding?" he asked softly. "Yes." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Back east, there was an explosion at the factory where I worked. Some said I was cursed. The man who was supposed to marry me walked away." Eli swallowed hard. "And now you think I'll do the same?" "I've learned not to expect kindness twice." For a long moment, neither spoke. Snow drifted between them, soft as feathers. Then Eli said quietly, "You were wrong about one thing." She blinked. "What's that?" He smiled faintly, his first in years. "You're not cursed. You're the bravest person I've ever met." After that, something changed. Clara stopped hiding her face. She worked alongside the ranch hands, helped with the ledgers, even laughed once or twice. The men treated her with respect, partly because she'd earned it, partly because no one dared cross the boss's wife. One evening, as the snow melted and the first signs of spring crept over the land, Eli found her sitting by the fire, mending one of his coats. He sat across from her. "Clara," he said, "I want to ask you something." She looked up, waiting. "When I brought you here, I didn't know what I was doing. I told myself it was pity, or duty, but it wasn't." He leaned forward, voice low and rough. "I can't imagine this house without you anymore. I don't want to." Her needle stilled. "Eli." "I know I don't deserve much," he continued, "but I'd like to earn your love if you'll let me try." Tears filled her eyes, glinting in the firelight. She set down the coat and took his hand gently. "You already have." She whispered. They married properly that spring under the open sky, with wildflowers blooming all around. The preacher smiled as he joined their hands. The same man who'd once called her the bride nobody wanted. Now the whole town came to see. When the vows were spoken, Eli lifted her veil not because she hid behind it anymore, but because she didn't need to. Asterisk, and when he kissed her, the crowd cheered, the wind softened, and for the first time in years, Eli Turner felt alive. Asterisk, asterisk, moral. Asterisk, love isn't blind. It sees everything and chooses to stay. True beauty doesn't hide behind perfection. It grows from courage, kindness, and the strength to begin again.